Got something here that's worked for a long time, that's responsive, that people know the people that are expected to be sure that the election is conducted in a free and fair way. This bill takes all of that away.
The filibuster forces compromise, and this is what Republicans did when they were in the majority in both the House and the Senate and holding the White House. We abided by the filibuster because we believed it was important to protect the minority party. The filibuster is what makes the Senate the Senate. I have said it before, but we don't need two House of Representatives here in Washington, D.C. So maintaining the filibuster is very, very important. What we see from Democrats, however, is that they want to get rid of the filibuster, and what we call that is a power grab. And what we see is a move forward on things like the $15 per hour minimum wage, the Green New Deal, federalizing our elections process, which is much better handled at the state and local level. Now, taking away the rights of the voters and the people within those states, that's exactly what we are experiencing in Iowa today. We have a Congresswoman, Marionette Miller Meeks, who was seated. She was duly elected and seated in Iowa's 2nd Congressional District. Now, it was a slim margin that she won by, but recounts were done in those counties. The board of every county canvassed the elections properly. It went to a bipartisan board at the state level, and the election was certified by Iowans. Now, Rita Hart, Marionette Miller Meeks' opponent, chose not to do what Iowa code calls for and go through the Iowa courts to appeal the decision of that bipartisan board. She chose not to do that. Instead, went straight to Nancy Pelosi and appealed to Democrats in a political process. Now, thankfully, those Democrats, some of them in the House, are standing up and coming forward and saying it would be wrong to unseat Marionette Miller Meeks, who has been declared the winner of Iowa's 2nd Congressional District. So we need to keep this process where it belongs, at the state level. It needs to be at the local level. We do not need to federalize our election system. And Marionette Miller Meeks' win needs to stand.
Last Friday, I had the opportunity to go to the Arizona-Mexico border with Governor Ducey from Arizona. And what we saw is what Biden's open borders amnesty policy are doing. I met with Border Patrol agents. They're flabbergasted at these changes. We took a helicopter, went down along the coast, and here's what you saw. You saw a wall. Then you'd have an opening because they were ready to put the gates up, and the Biden administration says, no, you can't put the gates up. You saw cameras and lights. They're ready to be hooked up so we can have better security. Shut down. They won't let them open that up. You saw roads that were supposed to run along the wall that are going to be washed out because of the rains that will come, unfinished, because the Biden administration made a decision that they're not going to finish the construction that Congress appropriated. So I don't know why the Biden administration is doing this. You've heard the numbers. 100,000 people were detained last month. Almost 10,000 children, 15,000 children now in custody. This is all Joe Biden is doing. He needs to go to the border, needs to see the crisis he's created. He said he's going to do it now, but we don't know when he's going to do it. He created this crisis. He needs to go deal with it. These governors like Governor Ducey are dealing with this crisis. They're dealing with people coming across the border. Their ranchers are getting impacted. Their businesses are getting impacted. Joe Biden needs to get down there and solve the problem.
Given the rise of gun violence and mass shootings that we've seen over the years, do you personally regret the opposition that you had to expanding background checks, including the Manchin-Toomey bill that Republicans blocked in 2013?
Yeah, well, with regard to the bill that is going to be up in the House, that the president, I gather, supports, I joined Joe Manchin in opposing that bill With regard to these acts of violence, they are absolutely horrendous. Let me focus for a minute on the shootings in Georgia. As the husband for almost 3 decades of an Asian American woman, I have noticed, and we have experienced over the years, racial prejudice against Asian Americans. It certainly rose to the fore for everyone else when we saw these shootings. These despicable acts of violence should need to be condemned for what they are, but the legislative solutions have been perplexing, and as I said, I share Joe Manchin's opposition to the version that passed in the House.
On the Senate floor, you argue the filibuster is not rooted in racism. Historians differ on this. Are you concerned about the perception? If it is used against advancing voting rights, certainly the public perception is that Republicans are going to use this tool to make it harder for black people to vote.
Yeah, actually, historians do not agree. It has no racial history at all, none. So there's no dispute among historians about that. I make no apologies for opposing this bill. You've heard Senator Blunt outline the various flaws involved in it. This is all about a power grab. If it were related to civil rights, why were the Democrats using the tool last year and the year before that and the last 6 years? Why is it all of a sudden a civil rights issue when it wasn't for them as recently as last year? Honestly, with all due respect, that is nonsense. This is a power grab. It's all about trying to take over the American election system. It has all kinds of flaws, and under Senator Blunt's leadership, we're going to begin to point them out in great detail starting tomorrow in the Rules Committee.
Do you have any concerns about whether Eric Greitens is the caliber of candidate that should be representing the Republican Party?
Well, I think the voters of Missouri are going to decide who the nominee is next year. And in the meantime, my view is it's up to the people of Missouri to decide who the candidates are going to be.
He's electable?
On guns, there have been a number of possible legislative solutions, whether it was expanding background checks, red flag laws, limits on magazine capacity. Are any of those things you think your conference might support, that you might support? Is there a legislative role in addressing the guns part of this specifically?
I'm certainly open to the discussion. We were in this place August of 2019 when we had another series of incidences. The then president was wrestling with whether or not he could support something. What I'm not attracted to is something that doesn't work. And there have been deep-seated philosophical differences between Republicans and Democrats about how to deal with gun violence. One thing we do know for sure is that these shooters are invariably mentally incapacitated. Mentally incapacitated. This is a vexing problem that is extremely hard to identify in advance. So we will see what the majority leader wants to put on the floor and see what it looks like and have a full, robust discussion.
Well, let me know.